About 15, 16 years ago, something very special happened. Well, for me personally and for millions of others. Doctor Who came back to our screens. Now, I'd grown up in the 70s with Tom Baker and Peter Davison in the 80s, and I loved it. Me and my brother loved watching it. It was a real family favorite. And then it went off the air and came back in 2005. And I was very excited to see if it would be good. When it left in the late 80s, it had become pretty rubbish. And I was happily surprised. It was good, but didn't get really good until a certain episode of that first season, when it reintroduced one of the Doctor's oldest enemies, the Daleks. Now, why do I tell you this? Because in essence, it's going to have a lot to do with what's happening at the moment in the world, both with COVID, with certain lack of responses, and what the deaths of certain great people have really taught us about what Torah is, what it should be, and what it shouldn't be. But let's get back to Doctor Who. See, this episode was set in the future, where the Doctor had stumbled upon a billionaire's collection of alien artifacts. Mr. Van Staten, an American billionaire, who basically had purchased from across the world all the findings of alien tech and put it in his private museum under the ground in his facility. And there's a conversation that I remember watching it when it first came out. I was really inspired by the Doctor's response to him, but I never realized what that response meant in terms of the Jewish people and in terms of what's happening now to the Jewish world. Confused? Hopefully you won't be in a few minutes. So in essence, the dialogue goes as following. Van Staten has the Doctor in the office together, and they're talking, debating. And the Doctor says the following to Van Staten. Let me tell you something, Van Staten. Mankind goes into space to explore, to be part of something greater. Van Staten replies, exactly. I wanted to touch the stars. The Doctor replies, you just want to drag the stars down, stick them underground, underneath tons of sand and dirt, and label them. You're about as far from the stars as you can get. When the Doctor says this, he's angry. He's passionately angry because he loves the stars. He loves exploration. He loves showing people the beauty of the universe, the cosmos, opening people's eyes to the beauty all around. And here's this guy taking this beauty and stuffed it underground for nobody but himself. And that leads me on to the tragedies of the last 9 months. 4 people, 4 great rabbis have left this world. Some COVID and some for other reasons, but tragedies for the Jewish world and for the non-Jewish world. Greats. Rabbi Norman Lamb, Yeshiva University. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, the Steinsaltz Talmud. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the chief rabbi of our Commonwealth and rabbi for the entire globe. And just this week, Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, psychiatrist, friend to millions across the globe. 4 very different rabbonim. They weren't all modern Orthodox. They weren't all Hasidic. We had a Chabad rabbi there, Rabbi Steinsaltz, a Chassid from the Chernobyl dynasty, Rav Twersky. Rav Lamb was the head of Yeshiva University in the US, and Rabbi Sachs, of course, the head here in the UK. But what did all 4 of these greats share? They shared the idea of making Torah broad, showing the world what Torah is, showing the world, showing the Jewish world what Torah could do for a person, how it can transform a person's lives. Whether in psychiatry with Twersky, whether in science with Rabbi Steinsaltz and Rabbi Sachs, whether in philosophy with Rabbi Lamb. All 4 of them inspired me with their books and their words and inspired the world. There's a debate going on at the moment in the government or in the country between the scientists of SAGE and the government. What do we do? And one of the critiques I heard of SAGE today, which I think is fascinating, is it was said that SAGE, they are basically, all they're worried about, understandably, is trying to stop deaths. They have modeling to work out how to bring down the deaths or when they'll be brought down, what we should do X, Y, and Z. And someone said, one of the ministers said, but it's not just about that. It's also about the quality of life. It's also about understanding what this lockdown is doing to people. And it's a fascinating idea. How do you balance? How do you balance the safety and security of the nation versus the safety and security of the nation in another way. But it all goes down to an understanding of what Torah is. Torah is there to inspire the world. If you keep it just to yourself, if all you're concerned about is what is happening to my Torah, then it's going to end up in a very, very dark place. I believe part of the problems we're having at the moment in certain parts of the Jewish world is because that's what it is. It's very insular. It's just for them. The outside world is the enemy. Contrast that with Rabbi Twersky. Contrast that with Rabbi Sachs, with Rabbi Lamb, with Rabbi Steinsaltz. How they saw the world as a place to inspire. How they saw the world as a place to talk to engage with. And yes, to be challenged by. Because there are ideas out there in the secular world that are challenging. But what do? Do we hide from those challenges? Or do we take them front on? Rabbi Sachs saw massive challenges, potentially, between Torah and science. So he researched and wrote a book and inspired millions. Rabbi Twersky understood the modern world, with all its addictions, could transform people if we had a way to get through to them. He managed it. Rav Steinsaltz realized that the world of Talmud was unknown to so many people, Jews and non-Jews, because it hadn't been translated in a modern and inclusive way. So he did that. And Rabbi Lamb took a 1950s and 60s drifting American Orthodoxy who were engaging with the world but not with Torah, and inspired and lifted them and their generations afterwards to understand you could live both in the modern world and be fiercely loyal to Torah. A famous philosopher once said, ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for. We have to make sure that Torah is for everybody. And this week, in Parashat Yitro, Hashem gives the Torah to the Jewish people. Every single Jew, man, woman, and child, heard Hashem speak the first two commandments. And then Moshe completed that. The message being, Torah is not just for those in yeshiva. It's not just for those who are in the Arba Amot of Halacha. It's for everybody. Everybody has to find a way to connect to Torah, to learn Torah. Of course, through the Masorah. And of course, through the Orthodox tradition. That is no question. And those four greats made sure they never, ever compromised that Masorah. Rav Twersky, Rav Sachs, Rav Steinsaltz, and Rav Lamb were fiercely loyal to Torah. But they managed to make that Torah speak to a broad range of people. And that is what we need to do. To realize that if we just worry about ourselves, our Torah will wither. Look at what Chabad have done by worrying about the world. Look about the outreach organizations by worrying about the world. Their Torah speaks to a lot of people. I'm so proud of the United Synagogue Rabbinate that I've been speaking to and working with for so many years. Because again, they're engaging with the other, with their community. The people have different ideas and different concepts and different beliefs. And that's okay. We shouldn't be scared to engage with people, to speak, to debate, to discuss. Sometimes it gets passionate. Sometimes we're challenged in a very difficult way, but we should never think that Torah doesn't have the answers to those challenges. That's what those four rabbis taught me. I read their books. Thankfully, with Rabbi Twersky and Rabbi Sachs, I spent time with them and realized these people were giants of intellect, giants of Torah, and giants of realizing that Torah is there to inspire, and we should never be afraid of anything the world throws at us, because Torah has the answer. This week we celebrate Matan Torah. Over 3,000 years ago, Hashem said to us, here it is. Here is the Torah that's going to transform the world. It was given to Bnei Yisrael, to all of us. It is our Yerusha, our inheritance. Morasha Kilat Yaakov, for everybody. Let us, this week on Parashat Yitro, make sure we recommit ourselves to those values. To realize that, yes, the people that taught those values to us over the last 50 years or so have departed. But their books and their ideas and their vision lives on. It is for us to recommit ourselves to that vision of a Torah engaging with the world, of a Torah inspiring the world, of a Torah that is not scared of engaging with the world. That is how we inspire a generation. That is how we inspire ourselves. And that is how we inspire the future of the Jewish people. Wishing all of you Shabbat Shalom.